When Tim Allen's Hollywood Hills home went on the market, it was thought to be another expensive celebrity listing. But as potential buyers and real estate insiders got a closer look, unsettling details like hidden rooms, off-the-plan renovations, and financial red flags started to show. This was very different from what fans of the home improvement star thought of him, and more questions were raised about what had been going on behind the mansion's doors. It was clear that what they found in Tim Allen's estate wasn't just strange, it was upsetting. The estate that raised eyebrows, Tim Allen's home in the Hollywood Hills, wasn't just another celebrity mansion. It was a fortress of mystery. Perched high above Los Angeles, the sprawling property had stunning views of the canyon and city skyline, but for years, an unsettling truth had been hiding beneath the surface for those who dared to look deeper. The public had been quietly guessing about Allen's estate. It was a work of architecture, a sanctuary that mixed mid-century modern style with rural charm. The property had huge floor-to-ceiling windows, smooth wooden paneling, and a master suite that was on par with the world's most luxurious hotel rooms. However, visitors often said that there was an eerie stillness in the home, as if someone was trying to hide something. Maybe it was the size of the mansion, with its confusing layout of hallways and rooms that didn't always seem to connect the way they should have. Or maybe it was the fact that only close friends and longtime staff members were allowed to be in certain areas. A housekeeper who had worked at the estate for over 10 years said she had never been in some parts of the house, even though she had cleaned almost every inch of it. It wasn't just that the doors were locked, she said later. You got the sense that you weren't supposed to ask what was behind them. Real estate experts were also confused, even though the Hollywood Hills is known for having strange homes. Allen's estate had a strange history of repairs that were late, sudden changes to the plans for the buildings, and property records that were not clear at all. Some said that the people who owned the land before had their secrets. There are rumors of forgotten rooms, tunnels, and secret spaces that date back decades. When Allen decided to sell the house, the mystery grew. As potential buyers and real estate agents walked through the house, discrepancies became apparent. Some rooms were marked as bigger on paper than they looked in real life, while others had no access points. One experienced contractor hired to do a routine inspection left the property clearly shaken, but when asked for more information, he would only say, "Something about that place just isn't right." On paper, Tim Allen's Hollywood Hills estate was a dream home, the kind of place that most people could only dream about. It had an open floor plan, high-end finishes, and enough space for big Hollywood parties. But for years, something seemed off about the carefully staged decor and high ceilings. Allen was known as a private person who rarely talked about his personal life in interviews. While this was a common practice among celebrities, Allen's level of secrecy exceeded the norm. Even close friends and family noticed that Allen had strangely strict rules about his home. Visitors weren't allowed in certain wings of the house, and some of the estate's security features rivaled those of government buildings. There were multiple layers of biometric access, reinforced walls in places that didn't seem to need them, and surveillance cameras in every corner of the property. These weren't just normal security measures for a famous person. They were precautions that hinted at something more. The basement, or more accurately what was below it, was of interest. The official plans for the house depicted a small lower level designated for utilities and storage, but there was a discrepancy. Contractors who had worked on other Hollywood homes said that Allen's property's square footage didn't match its actual floor space. It was real estate agents who first noticed the problem. One buyer's representative asked for an underground scan, which is a standard procedure for homes of this size, but the scan showed something else instead of the standard foundation layout. A hollowed-out area under the house that wasn't shown on any official papers. Allen's representatives dodged questions by saying that it was just a private storage area and that the actor wasn't required to share it. However, this answer wasn't enough to satisfy the more curious people involved in the sale. There were whispers that this was either an old part of the house that had been forgotten or that Alan was hiding something on purpose. One potential buyer appeared upset and abruptly left the tour. When asked what made them feel bad, they said, "I don't know what's in that house, but I don't want to find out." Even scarier, some of Alan's best friends said he never talked much about the house, while other famous people were always showing off their fancy homes. Alan remained silent about his case, which was unusual for him. The biggest red flag may have come from somewhere unexpected. A former security guard who was hired to watch the property at night later said in an unnamed statement, "I don't know what was in there. But I do know this. Tim Allen never wanted anyone to find it as the sale went forward." As tensions escalated, the discovery of the truth transformed everything. The garage that held more than just cars. On the surface, Tim Allen's facility looked like what you'd expect from a successful Hollywood actor and car enthusiast. A polished showroom full of classic cars, muscle cars, and rare motorcycles. Allen, who is known for his love of hot rods and vintage vehicles, often discussed his collection in interviews, showing how much he loved restoring and maintaining his prized possessions. But people who had seen the garage in person noticed that something wasn't quite right. The space exceeded the dimensions specified in the property records. At first view, it looked like a well-kept, fully stocked garage, but people who looked closely saw small problems with the way it was set up. One of the real estate agents working on the deal later said, "I've been to a lot of celebrity garages before this one. It had a different vibe. There were areas that seemed off limits that were clearly not just for storing cars." The garage pit, a mechanic's dream feature for working on cars from below, was the biggest red flag. Usually, these pits are simple structures, but Allen's was deeper than needed and made of materials that were much more sturdy than needed for normal car maintenance. One contractor hired to check the home's foundation before the sale noticed the problem and pushed for further investigation, but Allen's team abruptly stopped any further investigation. "This incident is disturbing. There was no reason to stop the inspection," the contractor later admitted, "unless they didn't want us to see something." Then there were the things found in the garage, or rather, the things that weren't there. Allen is known as a car collector, but some visitors noticed that important parts of his collection were nowhere to be found. Some people thought he sold the cars he had shown off in public in the past, but there was no record of those sales. It was even worse that there was a stack of old boxes in a corner that had only coded labels on them. One very alert real estate assistant saw what she thought were old VHS tapes, handwritten notes, and what looked like old classified papers inside an open one. What did Allen keep in his garage, and more importantly, why did he go to such extraordinary lengths to keep people out of the panic room? If the garage raised questions, no one knew about it. They became full-on alarm bells in the scary room. Almost all of the homes of famous people have some kind of security system, and a lot of them have safe rooms. While panic rooms are supposed to keep people safe in case of an emergency, Allen's was different because he went to extraordinary lengths to keep it a secret. At first, the real estate agents handling the sale didn't even know about the room's existence. It wasn't until an architect looked over the house's layout and saw a blank spot in the blueprint, a dead space in the house with no clear purpose or access point, that it became clear what was wrong. It was bizarre, one architect said, referring to the measurements that showed a whole section of the house that didn't exist, at least not officially. This was proven by structural scans and old renovation permits. The investigators determined what they were addressing. Most panic rooms aimed to safeguard individuals from external threats. But Allen's panic room seemed to be built for a different reason. It wasn't just to keep someone safe, it was also to keep something or someone inside. The real estate company representing potential buyers asked to see all parts of the house before going through with the sale. Alan's managers didn't say anything in response. Soon after, a team was sent to the house to do a private assessment. By the time they got there, the whole room had been sealed off. The architectural void that had once hinted at a hidden space was now filled. The walls had been strengthened. The possible entrance had been permanently blocked off, and there was no sign of its existence left. One real estate agent who had seen the original blueprints before the changes was left completely uneasy. "I know what I saw. Everyone involved was left wondering what was in that panic room before it was locked up." The investigation that followed the disturbing discoveries in the garage and the mysterious sealing of the panic room turned its attention to another strange thing: an old, unassuming filing cabinet hidden away in a less used part of the house. At first, it didn't seem important, just another piece of furniture in a cluttered study. But when a group of potential buyers started listing the estate's contents, the cabinet was locked in a way that most people wouldn't expect. It had a high-security biometric lock, the kind that is usually used to protect government secrets or high-profile financial records. This is when the questions turned from curiosity to real concern. What could a Hollywood actor be keeping that needed such a high level of security? It looked like the answer wasn't meant to be found. When Alan's representatives were asked about it in a discreet way, they responded quickly and clearly. The cabinet was off limits. No key would be given, no access would be granted, and the request to include it in the home's inventory was flatly turned down. That alone raised some eyebrows. Soon, there was a lot of talk about that. Those who had worked in the house during Alan's residency whispered about stacks of old tapes, handwritten documents, and envelopes sealed so tightly they looked untouched for years. Rumors surfaced that Alan had kept a meticulous record of his past, things he had seen, deals he had made, and perhaps even the kind of secrets no Hollywood elite ever wanted leaking out. Some wondered if the files contained studio dealings, internal feuds, or personal correspondences that never should have existed in writing. Others feared they could be something far worse. Then came the most unsettling revelation. A former estate worker speaking anonymously claimed to have once accidentally seen inside the cabinet years before it was locked down. According to him, the top drawer contained folders labeled with dates and names, while the lower drawers held small unmarked tapes, recordings of conversations that were never meant to be heard. But the real shock came when he noticed a section at the bottom obscured by stacks of papers. When he briefly moved the clutter aside, he saw something he would never forget. It was a photograph. He claimed just one, and it wasn't of Tim, it was of someone else, someone looking straight into the camera, their face pale, their expression frozen, like they'd just been caught in the middle of something. "I don't know who it was, but I remember one thing: whoever took that picture, they weren't supposed to." The moment he realized what he had seen, he backed away. Not long after, Alan had the entire filing cabinet moved to another part of the house, and from that day forward nobody was allowed near it. When the estate was finally put on the market, Alan ensured that the cabinet was removed before any potential buyers could get a second look, but by then the questions had already begun. The footage that disappeared as whispers about Alan's secret files circulated. Another discovery deepened the mystery even further. A longtime friend of Alan, someone who had worked closely with him in the past, recalled a strange incident from years prior, one involving security camera footage that vanished without explanation. Alan's home in the Hollywood Hills had a high-tech surveillance system that watched every entrance, hallway, and key area of the property. Originally, these cameras were meant to keep people safe and catch thieves or intruders, but Alan became obsessed with them and wouldn't just watch footage every once in a while. He did it all the time, sometimes late at night by himself in his study. One night, while visiting the house, a longtime friend noticed that Alan looked visibly upset. He was watching surveillance footage on his computer and wouldn't answer when asked what was wrong. Instead, he closed the laptop, locked the office, and ended the conversation. This moment stuck with the friend for years, because the next day Alan had his whole security system wiped, deleting every recording, backup file, and trace of footage from the system. Later, the security company hired to keep an eye on things confirmed that the deletion wasn't a mistake. It had been done on purpose with a full system wipe that left no recoverable data. The footage had been deleted forever. The question that haunted everyone who heard the story was simple: why? What had Alan seen on his own security cameras that made him act so drastically? Some speculated that it could have been a stalker or trespasser, someone creeping around his property late at night. But if that were the case, why wouldn't he have used the footage as evidence? Others believed it was something far more personal, something within the house itself. Could it have been a private meeting he didn't want anyone to know about? A record of someone entering the sealed panic room, or perhaps something even worse, the panic room secrets unveiled as the investigation continued and rumors about the estate's hidden truths swirled. One area of the house remained the center of intrigue: the notorious panic room. The sealed room, which had been a topic of conversation for years, had always been somewhat of an enigma. Originally thought to be a simple security measure, it was later revealed to be more than just a fortified space designed to protect from potential intruders. There was something far darker about its purpose. A contractor who was hired to fix up the house years before it was put on the market told a scary story about what he had found. He had been given the job of working on the panic room during a renovation, and while he was there, he accidentally found something that had been hidden in the walls of the room. At first, his job was simple. He was only supposed to make sure the room worked as it should. But as he started to work, he noticed a series of strange symbols etched into the walls that were almost impossible to see unless you looked very closely. The contractor remembered that the markings weren't meant to be pretty or follow a known pattern. Instead, they seemed purposeful, like some kind of code or language that he couldn't figure out. When he asked Alan about the symbols, he was told that they were just part of the room's security measures, but the contractor still had a bad feeling. The next day, he went back to check out the space and was horrified to see that the markings had been covered up, as if someone wanted to make sure they would never be seen again. During the next few years, there were more stories about what the panic room was really for. Some said it was a safe place for Alan's most valuable things, while others thought it was meant to keep him safe from threats that weren't just physical. One theory which gained traction after the estate's secrets started to come to light was that the room held evidence of something sinister: documents, photos, or recordings that would ruin Alan's public image and possibly even endanger his career. The final revelation came when investigators were allowed access to the room during the estate's final sale inspection. The sealed space, initially thought to be untouched, was found to contain a hidden compartment behind the false wall, a compartment that had gone unnoticed by the many who had inspected the house over the years. Inside were several manila folders and sealed envelopes, each containing cryptic notes, some handwritten in Alan's own hand and others clearly compiled by someone else. Among the most shocking items found was a letter heavily redacted and stamped with the words "classified, do not distribute." The letter, once decoded, hinted at a deal gone wrong, a financial transaction that had gone south and threatened to unravel Alan's reputation in Hollywood. It was clear that this panic room had served as a vault for more than just tangible objects. It held the secrets that Tim Allen had desperately wanted to keep buried. What exactly those secrets were, and why they were so fiercely guarded, remains a mystery, at least for now. As the estate's secrets slowly came out, people went missing and no one saw them coming. It became clear that some people close to Tim Allen were going missing. This wasn't the normal celebrity story of publicists, agents, and assistants leaving to work on other projects. It was something much scarier. Several of Alan's former close friends and colleagues had vanished without a trace, and no one seemed to know why. These weren't just anonymous people. They were important figures in Alan's life and career who had helped shape his image and build his brand. But as soon as they left, there was no sign of them in public. There were no press releases, goodbye notes, or formal departures. One person who stood out in Alan's story was James Blackwell, who had been Alan's personal assistant for almost a decade and was in charge of setting up high-profile meetings, interviews, and maintaining Alan's public image. But after an abrupt and unexplained fallout, Blackwell quit his job and was never seen or heard from again. His social media accounts were shut down, and his personal contacts were no longer available. An insider from Alan's team later said that Blackwell's departure was anything but normal. James wasn't just an assistant, he was a confidant. He knew everything about Tim's personal life and business dealings. This is why he was pushed out of the picture so quietly and suddenly. "It didn't sit right with me," the insider explained. Then there was Claire Reynolds, a former public relations expert who had worked with Alan during some of his most high-profile projects. Reynolds was instrumental in shaping Alan's public persona, especially during the 2000s when his career reached new heights. Yet after a highly secretive fallout, she disappeared from the spotlight, and no one could confirm her whereabouts. It wasn't until one former colleague reached out anonymously that the truth began to surface. Reynolds had reportedly taken a leave of absence to deal with personal matters but had been forced to sever all professional ties with Alan. There was a lot of pressure on her. The colleague admitted she was involved in some things that she didn't feel comfortable with anymore. She left with a heavy heart, but she also disappeared from the media's eye because she knew too much. This disturbing trend raised a chilling question: had Alan been using his power and influence to silence those who were getting too close to something darker than anyone had anticipated? And was the reason behind these disappearances linked to the secrets buried in the panic room, or something more insidious? One thing became clear as the pieces of the puzzle began to fit together: there was a hidden narrative within Tim Allen's life, a story that had been carefully concealed for years, and the people who had come too close to the truth were silenced. Some